Well, welcome everyone. I am here with a new friend, Jacqueline, and she's going to be talking to us about her book. All of you know in my audience that I'm an avid reader and I have a soft spot for authors. I myself have written 3 books and I know the work that entails. Now, I'm going to let Jacqueline talk a little bit about herself and her book, but I do want to say that she's an online coach and that she helps adults with ADHD. So, welcome, Jacqueline. So glad to have you. Tell us about who you are, what you do, and all about your book.
Okay. Oh, well, thank you for having me. So, Jacqueline Sinfield, ADD coach and also author of the book Untapped Brilliance: How to Reach Your Full Potential as an Adult with ADHD. So, I started out life as a nurse in England and I moved to Canada, and that's where I am now in Montreal. And then I started a coaching practice and then honed in and started specializing for the last 20 years in adults with ADHD. Mm.
So, Jacqueline, do you suffer with ADHD, or is that just a specialty that you moved into?
Well, it was a specialty that I moved into, but I will say that it was like I was guided. I'll say that because
Mhm.
so when I was 28, I was already a nurse, but I was studying psychology, degree in psychology, and one day my textbook was about dyslexia. And as I was reading it, I'm like, oh my goodness, that's me. Like they were describing me. And I'd always struggled in school, always, like my brother and sister, they'd be outside playing, and I'd still be doing my homework and like tears and like worked so hard, and my grades didn't reflect that. So then I got an official diagnosis with severe dyslexia. So in England, they grade it between A and F, F being the worst. I was F. And so then, then I finished my degree and I'm like, I wasn't going to pursue further education once I realized because it was so hard for me. So then I was kind of at a crossword because I thought I was going to get a PhD and become a psychologist. But then this is where the magic happened. Oprah just happened to be on in the background. I didn't usually watch Oprah because of the timing. And then she was interviewing a life coach, and people didn't know about coaches then. But I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, that's what I could be. So became a coach, like I did a 3-year training program. But back then, nobody knew what
Yeah.
coaches were.
Yeah. They just think of sports, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Now we're much more
Like,
familiar with it. But
yeah.
then, so I got an office and I had a landline. This was back in the day when landlines,
Mhm.
but people that had heard of coaches were people with ADHD. And so they would phone, can you help me? And so I said yes, because I felt confident I could, based on my studies. But what really helped them was my personal experience because although I'm severely dyslexic and the people have ADHD, there's enough of a correlation between our brains.
Mhm.
There's a
Mhm.
similarity. And so everything that I knew that helped me also helped my clients. And so then I'm like, oh my goodness, like this was like I couldn't have planned this. Like when I was a
Yeah.
little girl, I
Yeah.
literally I did dream of becoming a nurse. I never dreamed of becoming an ADD coach, but it's the best. Mhm.
Wow, that's exciting. So, I do know that when it's important that we have empathy and that we can relate to those that we coach.
Mhm.
And those that I coach, I do a little bit differently. I'm a coach for Christian women who desire to grow spiritually,
Mhm.
primarily empty nesters. We come to this place and we wonder what's next for me, right? Is my life over? And I walked through that. And so when you can say I've walked through that and you can get out and here I know the way, it's a lot more, it's better to I personally prefer someone who's been there and is no longer there, or has the skills and the tools to help me in that place. So I can see how that's relatable to your folks. So this book, I love the title. Um, the brilliance part, untapped brilliance. So tell us a little bit about how that came about and what the book is about. I love the title.
Oh, thank you. Well, how the book came about was because when I was in my office in Montreal, and I'd be sitting on my chair, and my client would be sitting on the sofa opposite me, and so many times people would say, I've got so much potential, I'm just not reaching it. And that was because the unwanted ADD symptoms were getting in the way. And so, because there's lots of positive things about ADHD too,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but when they're getting in the way, it's easy to brush them aside, or to be honest, not even realize that they're there. And
Mm-hmm.
so, so it was a result of hearing that phrase so many times. I've got so much potential, but I can't reach it. And so that's so the untapped brilliance, because
Yeah.
the they're brilliant, but then the tagline is how to reach your full potential. And
Yeah.
so then in the book, what it is there's 10 steps to very strategically untap that brilliance. So when your ADD symptoms are managed, then that brilliance can be reached. And so a lot of people really like the title because it
Mm-hmm.
emphasizes the positive.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm,
I love that. And so, because it sounds really intriguing, but
mm.
for those of us who wouldn't necessarily consider themselves ADD or ADHD,
Mm.
is there is that the content applicable?
Yes, yes. So yes, anybody, I mean, anybody could benefit from those things. Certainly anyone who has a diverse, a neurodiverse brain like me. So there's, in my coaching practice, I have 4 pillars. So one pillar is working on increasing the dopamine naturally. And so those
Mhm.
steps are in the book. So what that means is, so the ADD brain has less dopamine in their brain compared to someone else that doesn't have ADHD.
I
And
did not
that's,
know that. Okay,
yeah,
cool. That's very
that,
cool.
yeah, so that's how ADD meds work, by increasing the amount of dopamine in the brain.
Mhm.
But whether you take ADD meds or not, there's all sorts of reasons why someone would or wouldn't take them, that
Right.
you can increase the dopamine naturally in healthy ways. So we often hear about people becoming addicted to dopamine. So that's not the case for someone with ADHD, but there's unhealthy ways to increase your dopamine. But what I talk about in the book is healthy ways. So that includes taking an omega-3 supplement and meditation and making sure you get enough sleep. And so there's healthy ways that serve anybody. And then,
Awesome.
yeah, and then another pillar is executive support. So those are things like time management. And yeah, so we have lots of things in our brain, cognitive functions, and they can be affected when you've got ADHD. So they're very practical, strategic things. And
Mhm.
then the other part too is life design. And so when you create a life based on your strengths, ADD symptoms actually get less. So a lot of ADD doesn't disappear as you get older, but a lot of people think that it did, because if you really hated sitting in school, but then became a salesperson, traveling around in your car, talking to people, then you might think, oh, my ADHD disappeared. No, it's still there. It's just you've created a life that really works for your strengths. And so anyway, it's about life design. And then something I do with clients and in my membership that I can't in the book, and that is help people process having ADHD, because a lot of my
Mhm.
clients find out later in life, and
Mhm.
there can be a lot of grief and processing. You've got this new diagnosis that you want to
Yeah.
incorporate into your life, and so there's grief and denial and all sorts of things. So, but I obviously can't do that in the book, but I do
Yeah.
that in person, because that's a big part too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love that. I love that you include practical steps, because so many of the time, because I work in a, a Christian spiritual environment, and a lot of that stuff's, out there that's unseen. And so people are trying to look for ways that they can understand, bring practical, so how do I live that? How do I do that? Right. And so I understand that. And so much of the times we find resources that, show these ideas, and they're all fabulous ideas, but we're over here and the ideas over there, and it can't breach the two. So
Mhm.
I love that. That's really great. So what made you decide to write the book?
Oh, okay, great question. Well, it was because I love recommending books. So some people with ADD can't read books. It's just it's just something that is hard for them.
Mhm.
And then some people love to read books. And so for those people, I wanted to be able to recommend books that would help them. And there really wasn't anything
Mhm.
that would fill the one that, I mean, there's a lot more ADD books around. ADD was the old term. Now the current term is ADHD, but sometimes I use them interchangeably. So yeah, so there was a need, and I'm like, okay, well, I know all these steps work because that's what I'm doing with my clients. So that's why I put it in the book. And I wrote the book so that even people that don't usually like to read can read this book. So
Right.
it's very simple and practical and easy to read. So when someone tells me it's the first book that they've read ever or since school, then that makes me really happy because it
Yeah.
means goal accomplished. Mm.
Yeah, and that it was valuable enough for them to stick with it, right, and read it, and that's a real sign. If someone isn't a book reader and they finish your book, then kudos to you. That's great. So, how long ago, or how long did it take you to write the book, and how long ago has the book been out?
Okay, so the book's been out a long time. So I think I'm a bit vague, which sounds bad, but it's sort of 2010, and I set the mission. So I actually worked with a coach. She had this program. It started at the end of May. And she was in the US. So what's the US holiday that you have towards the end of May?
Memorial Day.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
So we started like the day after Memorial Day, and the program went, it was a group coaching program all the way through till Labor Day. And so it was really good having that accountability. But I had all the knowledge in my head because and I was living it with clients anyway. So it was
Had to
just
bring
a
it out.
question.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And do you know what? There was a lot of fear. It was one thing, yeah. So writing the book had a lot of fear. I'd get blocked, and then like writer's block, but it was because of like fear of like. But anyway, it all worked out. So that's how long it took from late Memorial Day through till.
Labor
But
Day.
yeah, and I
That
was
isn't very long though, really.
Well, I
No,
worked
it's
really
not.
hard
Yeah,
too,
yeah,
because I was single at the time. So I would work and then come home and write for like 4 hours. So
right.
I was very disciplined. But when I look back, it was actually a very happy summer. So it
Mhm.
was, yeah, I had a mission. Mm.
Yeah. So I so appreciate you being real enough to talk a little bit about the fear that you run into with the blocks.
Mm.
As I mentioned, I've written books myself, and I just want to kind of throw this out here and see if you experienced this. Didn't have a block when I was going through, but once it was done, I felt very vulnerable. Did you feel vulnerable? I mean, it's like you're sharing your part of your soul, and you're afraid people won't like it or throw it back. It was really kind of, I did not expect it. And I've never
Mm.
really heard anybody else talk about that, but I really struggled with that. What about yourself?
Yeah, it sounds like what you were experiencing at the end, I was experiencing
Hmm.
during.
Yeah. I think I'm a very task orientated person. And
Mm.
so I probably didn't even allow myself to even explore that kind of a thing until it was done. To be
Mhm.
honest, I have a tendency to, when I get a job, put my head down and just go until the job is done. And then I come up and I'm like, oh, what's going on in life?
Mhm.
Which is great for getting projects done. I always come in early on any kind of a project because I'm so task orientated, but it does, I do have a tendency to separate myself only to the task, and even, in self-denial a little bit of yourself, which you grow to learn as you get older, that that's what you do, right? And so you have to make some changes. But I know that, the other thing that you said that I kind of smiled about and I understand totally is my first book I wrote in 2010. And I had someone ask me, well, how long has it been out? And I was like, I had to think for a few minutes. I knew it had been out for a while, but I couldn't remember. And then, it's funny, we moved that year. We had two children get married, and my husband retired, and we moved to a different
Mhm.
state, all within 1 month in that year. And so it was a big kind of, everything was shifting from one season to another. And that's when the book came out.
Mhm.
And then the other two, I think were around, I'd have to actually look at the publishing dates. I think they're around 2014, 2015. So yeah, you're like, I don't know. I'd have to get out the book and look on the inside. So did you publish yourself or did you have it published with a book, a
Yes,
publisher?
it's self-published,
Yep.
which back then was not as normal as
Mhm.
it is now.
Yeah, and
Um,
people I have seen and heard, I don't know if you've run into this, but um I'm going to use some slang here because I don't know how else to say it, but they look down on a self-published author. I always say I get poo-pooed on because it's not picked up by a publisher. But what I have found in the research that I have done, is they don't offer anything that's that great of a deal beyond, and plus you get you don't have, you lose the rights to your book. And not only do you, I don't think people understand that you lose the rights to your book, but they don't promote it any more than we have to when we self-publish. And we
yeah.
still have full rights and we get still all the royalties. We don't just get a portion, which is a small portion, I might add, when you go through the publisher. Have you found that to be true as well?
Well, why one of the reasons I was like completely fine by
Hmm.
self-publishing was because I'd read this book. I was flying from California, from LA to Montreal, and it's not a short flight.
Right.
And the Kindle had just come about, like invention.
Hmm.
And so I read this book, and I wish I could remember the authors, but I can't right now. And it was about why self-publishing is like so much better than
Yeah,
going with a traditional. Now, like obviously there's pros and cons to both, but then
exactly.
when they were citing all the positive reasons for self-publishing,
Yeah.
oh, okay, yeah, I should just go for it, and so
Hmm.
I did. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Well, when I published the first time, I went through, I used Amazon and I used what they used to have something called Create Space. And they've
Hmm.
since, done away with it. But, getting your own ISBN and, getting it up formatted and all that, it was, I had to think about it and I had to do a little bit of research, but it wasn't as hard as you would assume to
Hmm.
get
Right. Yeah.
self-published.
Hmm.
So, do you mind sharing who your coach was or
Yes, so her name was Christine Closer, and
okay.
that's spelled
Oh,
with a K. I don't know that she still does this anymore, but she was so helpful. Like
yeah,
it was like exceptionally, really,
yeah.
really helpful. So even if she's not offering that type of coaching anymore, if I like working with a coach was definitely
Yeah.
made the process
R-
easier. Mm.
Right. And there was a coach, I still see her every so often. Her name is Tamra Lowe. And she was pretty active during that time. And I was just trying to see if she's very much for self-publishing and she's helps people publish. I was just trying to see if that was who that was. It doesn't, really matter. But I think everybody, depending on who they are and how they work and what their desire is and what they're going to do, it really helps them decide how to handle it. Um, at that time, and still to this time, I'm a minister. And so I looked at it as I to write 12 sermons, which it was
Mhm.
different, but that's how I got it done. Oh, I can pull out 12 sermons, and then, but I did a lot more adding to it because, you're not a chapter. But yeah, that's how it worked for me. That's it. That's how it worked in my head because I was used to writing those. And
Yeah,
so it
that's such a
wasn't
good
as big
idea.
of a deal. Now, it was
Mm,
a big deal to get it edited because
mhm,
I am not grammatically correct when I write. I'm not grammatically correct when I speak. And
mm,
so I had, several girlfriends. I have a teacher, my best friend is a elementary school teacher. And I had several people that, and so I had a book party at my house, and they came over and I had a first draft. I think there was a first draft or something draft, and they went through and marked things and restructured it, and I corrected that. And then I think maybe actually the first one I might have sent out to everybody. And when I got it back, I had conflicting ideas. And so I made the corrections that I could. And then that's when I had them come to the house. And I just kind of sat there as they squabbled over, no, I don't think that's right.
oh,
But
wow, that's amazing.
I just fed them a Coke, or we had some little snacks, and it was a fun girl time. They were all friends of mine, and it squabbled bad, but no, I don't think that's right. And so they'd be looking up the answers, but it was kind of a fun thing, for me.
Yeah.
But there was no way I could do it, because if I could do it, I would have done it, right? But that's not my skill. That is the one thing that I think that I miss by not having a professional publisher,
Mm,
is they will correct where areas um, you could add or expand. They were just looking at grammatic and paragraph structure and that sort of thing. But I think there's some professionalism that a book publisher would bring that I probably needed. And even deciding, I made some mistakes on my book cover. I made it very dark, and it should
mhm,
have been a lot happier, and it was a story of my life, and my life when I started was very dark, and I think
mhm,
I was trying to portray where I came from, and I should have portrayed where I was. And so it looks kind of dark and depressing, and who wants to buy a book that's dark and depressing, right?
mm.
So I made some mistakes, but I keep telling myself I need to go back and rewrite that thing. But then I think, oh, that's so much work.
Well, I wouldn't rewrite it,
Mm,
but you could get a new book cover. So I've got lots to say about what you just said.
mhm,
So the first thing is about editing. So if anyone is going to write a book, that
mhm,
like going through that editing process, that is tricky. So for me, it's like, because I'm dyslexic, I couldn't like see the errors, so I was completely reliant on someone to go through. And
mhm,
I just did last year I did a second edition, because my book, the whole the all the steps are still identical, but I didn't want people to be off put by, like, it was a little bit dated, and here's why. I mentioned Blockbusters,
mhm,
MySpace,
mhm.
and like, things like that were common back then, but like they're very
Yeah, they're
obsolete
like,
now.
what?
I know. So I did go through, and and I got a new proofreader, and she was amazing. So I do have a very good proofreader if anybody wants, like. And you know what? People with ADD, not everybody, but make excellent proofreaders, because they zone in on the attention to detail. So
Mhm, mhm,
um yeah, so just that was like a little aside.
mhm,
So yeah, so that getting that correction. And then one of my clients is a book cover designer. So
ah,
yes, so she works for a publishing house, but it's helped me realize just how important a front cover is.
yeah,
So I wouldn't change the content. I don't know if you're familiar with somebody called Dr. Joe Vitale.
mm,
Um, he was in the movie The Secret, and he's written a lot of books. And he was advised, so he was wondering if to go back and rewrite some of his older books, because as
mm,
you get older and you learn, you evolve. And he heard from someone like a good source, that
right,
no, because that's like a really good who you were when you wrote that book. There's some people that, some of your readers are going to come, and that's where they're at, like, because you've
mhm,
already evolved and changed, so that's like
right,
a perfect entryway to get in to your
Uh,
message.
that's a great point.
Mhm.
It is a great point because it's hard for me to think about myself in those dark places
Yeah.
because I've so changed. But
Mhm.
I agree with you 100%. That's a good tip.
Mhm.
So, what else can you tell us about your book and on where would they be able to find this book?
Oh, okay. So another really nice thing that I did, and it was a very lucky thing. I contacted two doctors that are very big in the ADD world, and also they've written lots of amazing books too. So I asked if they would read it and say some nice things, and they did. So Dr. Halliwell, who's also author of the book Driven to Distraction, so he said, Untapped Brilliance is brilliant, full of hope and practical wisdom. This book is a treasure.
Mm,
And he said, in logical, concrete terms, it shows a person how to get the gifts wrapped up in ADD and not suffer from the clutter and frustration that holds people back. So
mm,
that was Dr. Halliwell. And then Dr. Gabor Mate, who has written many amazing
mm.
books about lots of different topics, including ADHD. So he wrote Scattered Minds, and he said, Untapped Brilliance is a gem of a self-coaching primer. Straightforward language, Jacqueline provides practical advice and simple, easy to follow techniques that help adults challenged by ADHD really create their lives. So um, yeah, that helps to give people a little bit
Yeah,
more of an insight
absolutely.
too. And so it's available on Amazon. I think that's
Okay.
the easiest way. So
Yeah.
my website's called untappedbrilliance.com. And so if people wanted, they could go there, or it's definitely available
Get
on
available on
and
Amazon, which is definitely the easiest way to get something. I have, like mentioned, I have grandchildren all over, and so I used to buy their Christmas gifts, wrap them, and mail them, and I had more money in the shipping than buying the gifts. So
yes,
finally,
yes.
now I just buy their gift on some place that does delivery free, and then their mother wraps their gifts for them. It saves me a bunch of time and a bunch of money. I do want to circle back. I have a little note here that I'm writing on, and I wanted to really tell you two things. One of my dear friends has ADD, and she says, and I'm okay with that. I like it because I'm able to do a lot of things. And
Mhm.
I smile, and and she's just who she is, and we've been friends for a long time, and I'm okay with that. It doesn't really matter. She's who she is. So I love that you're pointing out that there's a lot of gifts involved in that, and she's obviously been able to hone in on the gifting part, and she's willing to do whatever because of all those gifts, right? She doesn't want to change who she is, which I think is really very healthy.
Mm,
Then the other thing that you said that I'm just really fascinated by is
mm,
at the very beginning you said the name came from um, people saying to you, I've got so much potential. Now
mhm.
that's just fascinates me because I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum where the people I meet don't see their potential. And so
Oh,
that's part of the thing that I have to breathe in and help help them rediscover, or probably not even rediscover, discover. These are women that are 45, 50, usually over 50, that have never seen their own value. And
oh
so
my
I think that's really interesting that the people that you see are saying over and over again, I've got so much potential, I just don't know how to get to it. And then I'm on the opposite end, that they don't believe they have any potential or that they have any particular gifts. And I help to
Mm,
help them unwrap to see that they do, because I'm sure that you believe this as well, that every human being has unique gifts and extreme value, and
oh
a
my
big part of
yes.
what I do is help them find that. And it's interesting that yours come with knowledge that they have it, they just don't know how to attain it, and
Mm,
mine come don't even know that they have it. Isn't that an interesting? That's why I listened and I thought, oh my gosh, that is so awesome. Do you think that
yeah.
comes with ADD or ADHD, or why would you say that's so?
That's such a good question. Well, it's interesting that your audience is women in like the late 40s because
Yep.
a lot of people find out that they have ADHD at that time. Perimenopause will
Yep.
often, so that's just like a little aside. So why would that be? Yeah, that is really, really fascinating. So the people that I work with often have low self-esteem, and that
Mhm.
comes of years with living with
Yep.
ADHD. And I don't know if your audience has that too, but I would imagine that if you feel like you've got,
Mhm.
um, and then the other thing is that, yeah, I'm kind of just, yeah,
Yeah, I didn't I knew that that was kind of throwing you under the bus, asking you to answer
well,
my
no,
question.
it's just like
But
fascinating.
I
Yeah.
was fascinated by what you said. I was like, what? Is that what she said? Because
Yeah.
it's so opposite for me. Now, I personally have some ideas, because I'm a Christian minister, and I believe that sometimes throughout life, including religion, we'll put, things on us that aren't ours, and we carry them, and we think we have to be a certain way. And so
Mhm.
because we think we have to be a certain way, we've really pressed down who we are. And so
Mhm.
we've lost who we are. We don't know who we are. And as women, I'm sure you know this too, we give everything to everyone. We pour our lives out for our spouses, for our work, and especially our children, that we
Mhm.
don't know who we are anymore, especially when they leave the house, and then it's like, what's left for me? My life is over. And
Mhm.
people say it can't be that bad. Well, you turn the age that we turned, and we'll talk, right?
Mhm.
So it's a huge, they talk about men going through midlife crises. We go through, at that age or stage, whatever, another crisis. Who am
Mhm.
I now? We've lost who we are because we've poured into so many. So I think it's a big part of that, that they're like, what do I have to give? Because they knew what to give to their children, right? They're just giving everything. But
Mhm.
who am I outside of that role? We have a tendency to, by we, I'm talking about women, um, in general. I don't think it's just Christians, but I think, the religion help is worse, not worse, but also adds on, I should say. But we have this tendency to get our identity, I imagine men do too, from our role rather than who God says we are. And
Mhm.
so that's where we have to decide, when we come out of that role, mother role, then we have to really come to grips with, who am I now? And that's when we have to determine if we're going to, you know, be who he says we are. So that's my take on it. But because I deal with that all the time, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I have. I don't know what kind of gifts I have. I don't know what my value, all that. And I wrote it down and I underlined it like 3 times. I've got so much potential. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know. I think I'd fall off my chair if somebody said that to me.
Oh,
I'd be like,
wow. Well, what an exciting
yeah,
time your clients are coming to you, to get really
yeah,
discover themselves
yeah,
and
yeah.
mhm.
So anyway, it's just kind of interesting. I've never run into
Yeah.
someone who I've ever heard that before. So I just think that was really fascinating. And so, it must be something with ADD or ADHD. We're using those terms interchangeably, that
Mhm.
clouds their thought. I don't have the words, but clouds their thought process. So they feel like they have to dig through that to get to that potential. They just have a different connect, not able to connect with it. Is that the thing?
So it's more that I mean, I'm sure there's an element of that, but it's more that like they know, like they'll see, for example, someone getting if they're in school, like someone getting really good grades and they're not, and yet they know they're smarter than that other person.
Ah,
And or in school, like in careers, same thing. Like they're working really hard and they're smart and very capable, but because they arrive late or it's not quite as organized, it won't
yeah.
be even though they've got the skills and that drive, it's the
Mm,
someone else, perhaps with less qualifications, less experience, that's getting the promotion. And
right.
so, and that's very annoying. Or they'll have an invention and they'll just like, yeah, that would be brilliant. And then it gets invented and then it does really well, but they weren't the ones to bring it fruition. So it's more the ADD symptoms that
I
like
see.
I
Okay.
like
Well, that's kind
blocking.
of,
Hmm.
well, that was just totally, totally, totally fascinating. And I just really appreciate your time, Jacqueline. For those of you who are watching, we had a little bit of a snafu to try to get our meeting going today, and it was all on me. I was sitting here thinking, I do this all the time, and it was me. I didn't have my speakers turned up, so I apologize to you for that, Jacqueline. But I'm so glad that we got to meet one another. Why don't you show us a picture of your book so people can see what it looks like?
Okay, with
And
the
I
light, can you see it okay?
Yeah,
So,
I can. I can't see the untapped, but I can see brilliance. So
oh,
it's
okay.
yeah, it's untapped brilliance. And I doubt there's very many books by that. And you can see by the colors, the yellow and the blue. It sounds like a fascinating book. And I would recommend that you go on over there to Amazon and check that out, especially if you or someone in your family or someone you're associated with suffers with ADD or ADHD. According to Jacqueline, and I believe her, that there are practical things in the book that can help those of us who have not or do not struggle in that area. But it's just been a delight, Jacqueline, to get to meet you and to spend some time with you. Is there anything as we're getting ready to close down that you'd like to add as we close out today?
Oh, okay. I'll just tell you one more useful thing. So it is available on Kindle,
Okay.
and but obviously there's lots of books that are. But if people have problems reading, so I severely dyslexic, there is a font called it's called Open Dyslexic Font.
Oh,
And in the Kindle, it's ever so easy just to make that change. And so they've designed it so that it's much easier for someone who has, I,
wow.
yeah, it's they weight the different letters. So
Hmm.
I could go on to the whole spiel, but I won't. But basically, it's a very, very, very helpful font. Anyone that has
Yeah.
dyslexia or problems reading. So
Yeah.
you can change your Kindle settings, and it makes the book even easier to read.
Wow, what a great tip. Thank you for
Mhm.
sharing that. That's great. So as you can see, she is a fount of knowledge. And once again, what is your website, Jacqueline?
It's untappedbrilliance.com.
There you go. She's a coach out of Canada, and please, if you struggle with ADHD or ADD, look her up. Go on to her website. I'm sure she has information there where you can connect with her, and I'm sure that she would be a great help to you. But as always, we're going to close it down because we're out of time. And from this book lover to you, I encourage you all to go out and read books, read books, read books, read books. God bless you all and have a fabulous day. Bye bye now.
Mhm.